All right, what's up, you guys? As you can tell, not our typical beginning to one of these videos, unless you've done some real digging, considering I'm yet to do a face cam video on this channel. This is probably the first time for a lot of you putting the face to the voice, and we're probably gonna have to get used to that a little bit, at least for the foreseeable future. Um, that brings me to the point of this whole little disclaimer is that for those of you that watched the video, you will know that the day after the final last week, I uploaded my recap on Jannik Sinner's Wimbledon victory. The video was on YouTube for about 1.5, a little under 2 days before it was taken down. Uh, and I just wanted to update you guys that that wasn't deliberate. That video got me my first copyright strike, which gave the copyright holder the ability to delete that video. Obviously, that Wimbledon final, a big moment, a big win. So I still wanted my thoughts out there on the final in the same way. This is pretty much the exact same video, voiceover wise. I just kind of spliced up the footage a little bit differently, cut out entirely any of the new footage from post final that I included in the original version of this video. My best guess is that's what got the video in trouble because I've never gotten a copyright strike before. Therefore, I know that the rest of my footage, or rather the clips that I have found and used that have pretty much exclusively been from, Tennis Channel, ESPN, official tennis outlets. I've never previously, gotten anything beyond a copyright claim, which I can live with. I've already uploaded like a trial of the new video um, in private form to make sure that, I don't encounter any of the same problems to this point. It seems like we are in the clear in that sense. So on that front, it's just like fingers crossed that, this Sinner Wimbledon win video can stay up. But big picture, you don't want to mess with copyright strikes. You get three of them and your channel will be deleted. Now, the strike, I believe, will be wiped off the ledger within 90 days, but just not trying to risk it, obviously. At the beginning of the year, I did have plans for switching to making facecam videos at some point. And yeah, just out of caution now, the decision's sort of been made for me. But even as it is, it certainly has its perks. It'll allow me to be a whole lot more consistent, make it a whole less time-consuming process, finding new footage, new clips, and the whole process of editing those together. Um, I'm leaning probably, yeah, just doing face cam videos, including some graphics that I can whip up, maybe the occasional as well, still incorporating of clips as well. And for now, I mean, in the present, most crucially, it'll definitely leave me less susceptible to encountering any problems on the copyright front. So that's just, how it impacted my plans for the imminent future on this channel. But it also got me thinking that, in the case of like worst case scenario, uh, who knows what may happen. Maybe, yeah, just playing devil's advocate. Uh, this first offense makes me just go under more scrutiny on some of my prior videos, whatever the case may be. Uh, if we were to encounter the worst case scenario, most of my audience, I feel like, your only ties uh, to me are on this channel, and in the event that this channel may be wiped out in worst case scenario, obviously it would be super frustrating, but having to start all over, a lot of you would have to come find me all over again. So yeah, just again, just as a measure of caution, I would implore you guys to follow me on my other two socials, whatever is more convenient to you. But I'll put them both on the screen here. I'll put the links in the description below. just so you can stay updated in the loop for what's going on the channel. That'll mostly probably be on Twitter. I'm most active there, and I do, give out some raw thoughts on tennis. I'm posting there relatively frequently these days. Obviously, it's Twitter. We'll have fun. In addition to that, I just would hate to lose, a little community that we've carved out here. So yeah, I mean, just as a precautionary measure, I guess, yeah, holla at your boy. But with that out of the way, I will let you guys get to the video. Hope you enjoy. Talk soon. All right, you guys, let's talk Wimbledon champion Jannik Sinner. He, of course, gets his lick back over Carlos Alcaraz in this year's Wimbledon final, stopping a run of 5 straight against the grain for Jannik Sinner in this rivalry, and doing it as unfazed as ever. It's as if that Roland Garros final didn't even happen. It really just seemed to roll right off his back. And obviously I know that is not the case with all certainty, but the way that he conducted himself, the way that he played throughout the course of this Wimbledon fortnight, just a couple weeks later, with the exception of the better part of 2 hours of his 4th round match against Grigor Dimitrov, you wouldn't be able to tell that he was coming off of what very well might end up being the most painful defeat of his career that he ever endures. Which is crazy to say, considering he's still so relatively early in his career, still quite young. But, that just goes to show the magnitude of the defeat he suffered, and despite that, as has been the case throughout the course of his career so far, Jannik Sinner, the tennis player, just continues to be Teflon, honestly. Whether it's the shakeup in his team, whether it's obviously all the scrutiny that has come over him in the last year or so, and will probably continue to follow him, at least to some extent, for the rest of his career, with the noise created in the aftermath of his positive doping test becoming public, whether it's, living up to expectations from the time that he first unearthed this world beater level in himself back in the autumn of 2023, being able to maintain that and immediately go into the next year, win his first major, expectations heightened from there, then becoming number one, expectations heightened all the more, and at every turn, the winning just has not stopped. In fact, you could argue it's only picked up, as he's now won 3 of the last 4 majors. And yeah, just for good measure, we got the test of heartbreak and how he would respond, and no different. It just has not mattered. And as far as the purposes of this particular match go, honestly, a tale of not exactly a match of 2 halves, but definitely the inflection point being 1.5 sets in. And yeah, from that point on, Jannik Sinner really bossed this match, took the bull by the horns, and really shut out Carlos Alcaraz, kept him very much in check, not just on the scoreboards, not just on the stat sheet, but never really allowed him to tap into the magic, kept him dormant, relatively emotionally flat, and for all the tools in his toolkit that we love to fawn over, and deservedly so, all Jannik Sinner really left Carlos with, or at least made him feel like he was left with, was just exchanging cannon fire, as Jim Courier put it after the match. And as we know, as we've seen throughout the course of this rivalry, and I think the Roland Garros final in a way reminded Jannik Sinner of the pathway that is most conducive to success for him in this particular head-to-head. And quite simply, yeah, he just had the perfect mix of conditions to make it even easier to pull off. And after going off the rails early a little bit, once he self-corrected, Carlos Alcaraz just could not stop him from imposing himself really from all areas of the court, which, that's the hallmarks of a fantastic grass court performance. Obviously, we touched upon the trend with the serving in these 5 matches that Sinner had lost to Alcaraz. Well, on the grass, most definitely we reverted to the mean. Not necessarily that he had like an out-of-body serving day, but certainly for the first time in a while, the serving advantage felt firmly in the Sinner corner between them. For the first time in a while, yeah, it wasn't just, Sinner has the better serve just on paper. There was actually a noticeable, albeit not, huge gap pro Sinner in serving here. I thought mainly that showed up in first serve percentage, and then later in the match, really just the threat of Sinner's baseline prowess and Alcaraz just not feeling good, verbalizing that to his team late in the third set when he was broken. Shout out to some of the Spanish-speaking Twitter users that were able to translate. That more or less boiled it down to his tirade to his team being that he was feeling just completely overmatched and that Jannik was much, much better than him from the back of the court. And as a result, it felt like Carlos just started panicking a little bit, trying to get like Mach 5 out of his serve. And obviously that's where the biggest statistical gap exists, his first serve percentage in this match. And Sinner, again, didn't really serve a particularly high percentage of first serves, really in line with his average, low 60%. 62 to be exact. But Alcaraz, on the other hand, was 52, and a lot of it definitely seemed rooted in him just trying to go as big as possible on the first serve to ease, the burden of what he would have to do from the back of the court against Sinner, especially as the match wore on. And obviously, as a result, Alcaraz having to hit a lot of second serves. He did start this match, as I said in my preview, I was sort of expecting the serve that we had gotten through week 2 of Wimbledon to show up in this final, and felt that it would be an X factor for him, especially seeing him hit the second serve so big against Taylor Fritz. I'm actually surprised the averages aren't that far apart. I think like 1-2 miles an hour quicker on each of first and second serves compared to the Fritz match. But it actually turned out that Jannik Sinner going bigger than usual on his second serve proved to be the bigger standout in this match. Most notably, getting him out of trouble, and the one chance that Alcaraz got to get back in this match is a little bit of a lifeline after, not being able to touch Jannik on serve really for most of the period after early second set. But as far as the Alcaraz second serve was concerned, again, the match felt like it had a very clear inflection point, and through that first 1.5 set portion when Alcaraz was in control for the most part, the serving was very, very good actually. The same, going big second serve seemed to be going according to plan, of course, until, things completely swung around in the latter portion of this match, those last 2.5 sets. I'm honestly surprised that the average second serve didn't drop more, because it was a case of old habits die hard. Obviously, Carlos racked up a couple of doubles, ended up with 7 for the match, and I do feel like the doubles sort of scared him off from, what he'd been rolling with throughout the course of this tournament. Obviously, it was out of character, but it had been working the entirety of this tournament. Well, I shouldn't say the entirety, week 2 rather, and a couple untimely doubles definitely, I thought, had him revert back into what's comfortable, the kicker out wide, especially on the ad side. Obviously, the tried and true to set him up to, run around a little bit, hit inside out, inside in forehands into the open court. But against this opponent, that just wasn't going to cut it, right? As expected, if he was going to go to that, it was going to be right in the sweet spot for Sinner's backhand. And oftentimes he took advantage of Alcaraz, leaning to his left again to try to set up the runaround forehands, and just hammered that serve up the line. obviously clinched the decisive break in the fourth set with that exact shot on the return. And, I think he recognized on the other side of the court, under duress, Alcaraz was going to go to Old Reliable. And Sinner was absolutely ready for it. He was sitting on it. And if he wasn't just flat out burning Alcaraz up the line, he was noticeably making Alcaraz just half volley a lot straight off of his return as this match progressed. And, that really is most of the reason why, a lot of people thought that this was an excellent opportunity for Sinner to finally get that elusive win, get his get back on Carlos was... these conditions, this surface was just going to make it so that he could flip the serve return dynamic in his favor that had stood out like a sore thumb against him in the last 5 meetings. They won first serve points at the same clip, but obviously Sinner putting in about 10% more first serves, and then for reasons that have been, outlined between the doubt that he put into Alcaraz's mind on the second serve, as well as Carlos, even before that, having his second serve a little bit teetering and unsteady to begin with. That also ended up being roughly plus 10% for Jannik Sinner. And then, as touched upon a little bit before, he was doing exactly what he wanted from the back of the court, which is rush, rush, rush. Overall, this turned into, an alright final, not a great one. And, you probably come to that conclusion just stat watching too, and you look at the Sinner winners unforced column, and it's 40 and 40, even split. And if you didn't know any better, if you didn't watch the match, you would probably come away thinking, this is a pretty average Sinner match, right? And again, I think it really comes down to this match being split in two, because even from the off, I know Sinner led a break in the first set. I felt he was the tighter of the two for sure. The break that he got, again, was a game that Alcaraz's first serve just deserted him and turned out to be a sign of things to come, but he lost the game from 40-15 up. And even with the break, the shoulders didn't open for Jannik Sinner. He remained very tight. And that's maybe just the gravity of a Wimbledon final and the aura, the mystique of that tournament being unlike any other in our sport. This being his first final, Alcaraz having been there, done that. But the last couple points of the game that Alcaraz broke back in the first set, it was kind of donated to him with some unforced errors by Jannik. And same with the game that he was broken to lose the first set. A bad volley, unforced error, as well as a double fault at deuce after saving a first set point. Both those come to mind, and obviously Carlitos finishes the first set in spectacular fashion with that, just dink chip into the open court on the full slide after he got Jannik out wide with an angled forehand that Sinner just belted the running forehand up the line on. And yeah, as unspectacular as I thought those first two sets were, I don't know if you'll find a better pair of set points. But following that, the way that first set ended, this passage of play right here, these first 5 games of the second set, that's really where the match was lost for Carlos Alcaraz. Because with how tight Sinner was, and of course a set point that was so just electric that would have definitely, deepened the blow of Alcaraz just snatching that set away again after trailing a break. This is again where a little bit of lack of situational awareness that I was talking about during Sunshine Double with Alcaraz comes in. Then I felt like, it had been a thing where I'd been frustrated with just a lack of urgency in staying connected. And at the beginning of this year, it felt like he was instead letting go of the rope in some situations where he could have piled on the pressure most of the time when he was down. This, on the flip side, I feel like you've got to be more ruthless, or at least, not be so leaky when you see what's going on the other side of the net. because there really was a chance here for Alcaraz to stretch the lead. Obviously played a horrific first game to be broken, went down a quick love 40, two of which were like a double fault and a straight unforced error. And yeah, this is a couple of notable times in his career, and a career where there haven't been many letdowns at all. So the ones that there are, they do stick out. But it is 3 times now where I feel like there is room to grow as a front runner here, where even if it's just blinking the one time and he fights like hell the rest of the way, even just blinking that one time, it has, avalanched on him at Cincinnati 2023, at the Australian Open this year, and definitely now in this final. That's just prone to happen when your opponents are as good as they are, even if you let your guard down for that one instant. But it just couldn't happen there. And, that being said, even after he was broken, there were definitely chances to go get that break back. Even then, getting the break did not loosen Sinner up. And I'll tell you what, like early doors in the second set, whether it was by Sinner's first or second service game of this set, I do remember checking the stats at some point in that span and seeing 8 winners, 18 unforced errors out of Sinner. He was still not playing very well. And again, that speaks to how healthy the number was the rest of the way. That means he had 32 and 22 unforced the rest of the way, and certainly it looked, even more stunning than that. But at that point in time, Sinner missed a couple of routine backhand passes. Both guys at this point in time showed, visible frustration to their teams. Alcaraz only able to generate the one break point across the first 2 Sinner service games of the set, where I still believe, Sinner hadn't quite snapped out of it and still did offer up some chances. Did not seem all that confident yet, but of course able to claw his way to a couple of holds. And from that point on, I thought that freed him up a little bit, got some easy holds in the bank. And really where he arrived to this match was the 5-4 game, serving it out for the second set. I think like 3 winners out of him in this game that probably only he could pull off against Carlos Alcaraz, all 3 in defense. One off the backhand where Alcaraz maybe a little bit casual with his drop volley. And then the other 2 on the spot was basically a coronation of this guy having the best running forehand on tour right now, because both the forehand winners, I feel like if you're Alcaraz, you're not even entertaining the possibility of just getting beat cold from the positions that Sinner hit these winners off of. The first just pelted back behind Alcaraz up the line off an inside-in forehand that he got a real good hold of. And the second, with some unbelievable defense with the backhand, he was stretched out, open stance, sliding backhand up the line. That would have beat most, but Alcaraz was there, hit it into the open court. It was a great shot, and Sinner pranced around over there and hit, just the sweetest angle. And it felt like from that point on, Jannik Sinner comfortably had the better of play the rest of the way. The real Jannik Sinner stood up, and he never looked back. Third set, there was one half chance there for Carlos Alcaraz. Sinner serving 3-4, 30 all. And again, talked about it earlier, a little bit of role reversal, where not only was it Sinner going for his shots in the big moments, but how about throwing caution to the wind, unloading on an ace out wide that quelled any hope for Alcaraz to wrestle back the momentum, and then again immediately bounce back the next return game at 4-all. And how about this as well for role reversal, the net frequency? I mean, nobody could have gone into this match foreseeing Jannik Sinner to almost double up Carlos Alcaraz in net approaches. It was 40-23, and Sinner very clinical up there, 30 of 40. oftentimes, following in his huge blows that, as it is, were not letting Alcaraz get out on the front foot. And in throwing in this wrinkle, didn't really give him as many options as are usually there for him on defense as well. In so many ways, just forced Alcaraz to have to make decisions at like a million miles an hour. Like I said earlier, like really just keep him in a cage in every way. The only way he really could make use of his improvisational skills in this one were the half volley skills. And that was largely just Sinner making him hit a lot of low percentage shots because of the type of zone he got on the return as this match progressed. It was more of the same again in the fourth. Of course, broke early at 1-all and continued to surrender very little on serve. Really kind of had you feeling that if Alcaraz was going to have a prayer at getting back into this one, he was going to need some help. And Jannik certainly offered it up. The one letdown for him in this second portion of the match in the last 2.5 sets really was right here. Made a couple of loose errors, offered up a 15-40. But again, the huge second serve, this one at like 110 out wide was enough to force an error out of Alcaraz on the return. The second one was really the killer. And everybody sort of felt it. That was the chance, and knew in the moment that it would likely be the last chance. Carlos went the right way on the first serve return, got a really good return back into play, got into the rally, and ultimately sent a cross-court forehand long. And this is really the last thing I'll say on the Alcaraz side of things, because it's alright, you're not gonna make them all. But that miss, crystallized that he did not have near the forehand day that he needed to. Certainly, Sinner robbing him of time had something to do with it. Big part to do with it, really. But for this match, Tennis Abstract had him down 11 forehand winners, 22 unforced errors. That is what it is on a grass court. And the way it looked to the eye would confirm that off the ground. Again, some of the hallmarks of whenever Sinner has had success in this rivalry is him pressing. And that'll happen when trying to go blow for blow from the baseline with the guy that has the next evolution of Novak Djokovic's lockdown mode, where it's watertight, except every ball's coming at 80 plus miles an hour. So there was that. And also, this was probably the worst Alcaraz drop shot match in a big match that I've ever seen. And, you take the good with the bad, because the drop shot has been a huge fixture in some of Alcaraz's defining moments in basically all of his slam wins to this point, but not a good outing out of it. On this day, and basically any time he plays Sinner for the most part, he's gonna need his A game. And in this matchup, when he hasn't gone to mixing it up, the scope of which is more limited when it's not on a slower court, because Carlos has never been one to use his slice like a Dimitrov, knifing it a bunch and really playing disruptor. Feel like it's always more so been a defensive standout. Obviously, width and height, not as much an option here. So, at the end of the day, he needed an A+ forehand day, which he did not get. And working with what he had, it was just never going to be good enough. He was outclassed. He was thoroughly outplayed for the last 2.5 sets of this match. Only thing to really pick at is, again, beginning of that second set. Sinner was tight, likely would have stayed tight till he got the set, which, he loosened up a little bit earlier. But I don't think he truly got his mojo back till that magical 5-4 game in the second set. Even as is, being donated a lead out of the gates in the second set. And in hindsight, it becomes that much more important knowing that Carlos was going to be kept in check like this the moment Jannik found his game. It became that much more important to just keep applying the pressure from the end of the first set. Room to grow as a front runner. I think this one, given just how good Jannik Sinner is, and the fact that, he demonstrated superiority on the day. It's not one that should eat Alcaraz up, or one that he should feel like he wants back. As ever, he battled until the end. It's a great development in their rivalry now. I don't think it should cut as deep as some of the damaging Djokovic losses in each of the last 2 years ahead of the summer hardcourt season. I think it should motivate him plenty and prime him for a push there to better his best efforts there thus far in 2022 and 2023. And yeah, after 2 straight major matches that have been played at Jannik Sinner's speed, it's up to him now. It's his move what the next counter is, and should only make him hungrier. But like I said at the end of my preview, it was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when, and it was going to happen very soon for when Jannik Sinner would break this 5-match skid against Carlos. And yeah, he just went out there and took it. I said it would be interesting, the next time he was in a clutch moment, in a closeout moment, and we got a resounding answer when it was time for Sinner to step to the line and serve it out. Because those first 3 points, I believe Sinner found first serves on all 3, and Alcaraz actually landed returns on all 3 and made Sinner play. And Jannik just went out there and won it. Built a quick 40-love lead, and this time it being on his serve at the second time of asking, 1 swipe of the first serve, and he is Wimbledon champion. Super well deserved. Perhaps it was ominous when, in the midst of still the developmental stage as he got better and better, before he got to this point in his game and he was able to put up strong resistance to Novak Djokovic still in the midst of his 30s dominance of this event, that now, maybe in his and his fans' opinions, that since last year was derailed because of illness, he comes back and his first proper bite at the apple this year converts, brings home the title, and stems the tide in the Alcaraz rivalry. And it couldn't have come at a better time for him, picking one off of Alcaraz's domain on the natural surfaces as we gear up for nothing but hard courts until next April, and the next 2 Grand Slams lying on Sinner's turf. History probably will remember the Grigor Dimitrov match, the one true moment of suspense in Sinner's Wimbledon campaign this year. But Jannik Sinner won't care, nor should he, regardless of form. He just beat Djokovic and Alcaraz to win Wimbledon, and the Alcaraz win in particular truly validating an otherwise dominant run that makes it easy to overlook the big picture dominance. Since last summer, Cincinnati on basically cleaned out everything on hard courts. Obviously continued that into the new year, won the Australian Open, got a first real marquee performance at Roland Garros, obviously a point away there, and certainly now we'll have people thinking about the fact that theoretically at just 23 years of age, this guy was a point away from a non-calendar Grand Slam. And, since Laver did the calendar, that feat has only been accomplished by an apex Novak Djokovic in men's tennis. And I say all this to say that it might be hard to wrap our heads around this, and especially this year because he was suspended for 3 months of the year and has more or less missed all but just Rome for non-slam events this year. But after putting in what is statistically one of the great seasons of all time last year in 2024, even with the 3-month gap, he has not missed a beat. He's picked up right where he's left off, if not even better. We may very well be in the midst of one of the greatest peaks in men's tennis's history with Jannik Sinner right now. And I get it, right now it's Sinner, Alcaraz, and the rest. Only helps that, beating Alcaraz the way that he did, he now has the signature win as well in this span. But it does seem kind of undeniable to me. I mean, I am willing to concede, I do think this year so far has been the worst top 10 that I have ever seen. Almost everybody sans Draper for this season of the top guys has underperformed. There's like a Fritz that's trending upwards now, but still nobody in shouting distance of Sinner Alcaraz. But it's not just that Sinner's winning at this unbelievable clip for 1.5+ years now. He's also just clobbering these dudes in most of those matches and racking up the titles while he's doing it. It's crazy to think about how fast this has all happened, because it's a little under 2 years ago that he still didn't even have a Masters title. No big title of any kind. Had just made a first slam semifinal. And look at him now, a dominant number one that was thwarted in one of the greatest matches of all time to not be holding all 4 slams at once right now. True all-around player, only seems to continue to be improving somehow. And as we head to North America for the home stretch of the major season, no further explanation is required to delve into Jannik Sinner's caliber on hard courts. He has owned the cement of late and should be the favorite in every event he enters the rest of this year. Excited to see how it all goes down. Just gotta wait about 2-3 weeks for my personal favorite part of the tennis calendar to kick off as a Cincinnati native. Always excited as ever for that to roll around, but I'll just leave you guys with congratulations to Jannik Sinner again. He and his fans should bask in what was a very well-earned Wimbledon title. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, it would be much appreciated if you could drop a like, help this video perform better in YouTube's algorithm, and also subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Thank you all again so much for watching, and of course, I will see y'all in the next one.